Hamzah Sheeraz, Edgar Berlanga, you were there. Queens, New York, you were in the building. And man, I seldom get a fight this wrong. This just quickly, what a wild fight again, because Berlanga's out jabbing Shiraz, and then Berlanga cuts the gap because Shiraz is like, please go ahead, cut the gap, be my guest. And I thought, oh, well, maybe he's shelling up again like he did against Adames. And Berlanga starts trying to throw heat, throw left hooks, and towards the end of the third round, Shiraz started to open up with combination, let his nuts hang, and then in the fourth round, it's Berlanga languishing on the inside, getting caught with a left hook. Man, just super sharp performance by Hamzah Sheeraz. We knew he was sharp, but coming up to 168, I doubted his physical strength to deal with Berlanga. But just the number one thing I want to give him credit for, but beyond the tactics, and he's a sharp puncher with very fast hands. And by the way, he got a little bit of retribution for Amir Khan, Danny Garcia, right? There's a little bit of retribution there, 13
Okay,
years later.
okay.
So,
Yeah, we
but
hear excuses in boxing all the time, Sean. And one of the common ones is, oh, he was weight drained. He just it wasn't his weight class, and he just didn't have the strength. When you're talking about a fighter who's been competing in a weight class, for several fights, and then he doesn't succeed or gets a gift decision, which I do think was what Hamza Shiraz received against Adames. I thought Adames won that fight, and then here comes Frank. Here comes the team. He just wasn't his weight class, and he didn't have the power because he was too light. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, sure, sure. And then he goes up to 68, where there's monsters up there who hit much harder and have more experience. And the test was going to be very, very certain come last night. And so when I heard those excuses, I didn't buy them. I was like, okay, first of all, I felt like you lost a fight. You're coming out with some reasons why, and then you're chasing some kind of vindication by going up in weight because you can't compete at this weight. That's what I thought was happening. However, what we saw proved in the pudding that actually was a reason and not an excuse this time. Very seldom is that the case, but in this case, it was. I thought Shiraz was fucking really comfortable at 68. He's the right size, the length, the height. I mean, he was just dealing so like seasoned, and the guy is not a seasoned veteran. And let's not go too far in what this Berlanga fight means, but it is proof that maybe the Adames fight had something to do with the fact that he wasn't strong enough at the weight, that he maybe was drained. Adames still beat him. Adames still deserves a credit for that win. However, we might really see somebody now in Hamzah Sheeraz at 68 that is able to compete at the top level. I don't know that, but it's possible. And what he felt in that first round, by the way, was Berlanga's power. He did get stunned by the power. It wasn't like Berlanga didn't do anything. But then the fact that Hamza was able to make an adjustment based on Berlanga coming straight up the middle, hitting him right in the face with a jab, that did hurt. Didn't hurt him like, oh, I'm hurt. But it was like, oh, I felt that. And that's not something I want to sustain throughout the fight. Showed a lot of class. I thought he showed more seasoning than he actually has. And now I'm really looking forward to him competing at 68.
yeah, he's definitely put himself into the top dogs at 68 with this performance. And we're asking what I was going to say earlier about what I loved about his performance was, to me, he shifted gears psychologically in this fight. You're talking about the physical stuff coming up in weight, and that makes sense too because the guy's very tall for these weight classes. I think Fundora, has thrown that out of whack for all of us. Like, now, but we forget that 6'3" at 160 is ridiculously tall, taller than Thomas Hearns was at these weights. And what I loved about his performance psychologically was he seemed to say to himself coming into the ring, if I'm gonna lose this fight, I'm not gonna lose this fight because I beat myself. I'm not gonna lose this fight because I kept my hands in my pockets like I did down the stretch against Adames. And so I love that from him because, like you said, Berlanga was hitting him with the jab early, and I was like, uh-oh, like that was a key area you needed to execute to win this fight was out jab Berlanga. And then, but then he threw us for a loop when he started throwing his heavy artillery, and Berlanga was moving his head and threatening to come up with that hook, which he never really got in there. But you could see, I mean, how dangerous was Berlanga's power in person? Because even though he never connected with the heavy artillery, it looked very explosive and dangerous in this
In
fight.
person, he had to find it. He
Yeah,
was
he couldn't
missing
find it.
wide early. Like, I gave Berlanga the first and the third round.
Hmm.
And I thought it took Hamza a minute to get his timing and get his accuracy because he was missing. And I was like, oh man, he's going to miss. And then Berlanga's going to make him pay with something vicious. And we're going to see the big man come down. I mean, you talk about these tall, lanky fighters like Paul Williams, you know what I mean? They look brilliant until somebody reaches them in a counterpunch moment, and then it's a crazy highlight. I thought that might be what was coming down the pipe for Hamza. So you're right. Mentally, not only did he weather the storm during the buildup, kept his cool, didn't go crazy, but he was not intimidated when that punch landed in the first round. And then when he needs to recover in the third and be like, okay, we're in a fight now. I'm not going to let this guy bully me. I'm not just going to let him stay inside and do what he wants to do and start tucking up and try to find just moments to punch and move. No, he said, we're in a scrap and I'm going to fight you the way you want to fight, but on my terms. That shows us that we do have a real good talent ahead of us and somebody who knows not only boxing, but has the heart to be a warrior.
Yeah, at that weigh-in, I showed it to Samantha, my wife, and I go, uh-oh, that look from Shiraz says, like, you've blown your load. Like, are you all done now? Because it's fight time now, and now I'm ready. Now I'm on that shit now. And Edgar, I saw Edgar, and I go, you shot your load already all throughout the week.
you,
You know?
you won the press conference, but the fight's the one that matters.
Right, and you could say, well, that worked out for Shakur, but Shakur ever so slightly held a little something in the reserve tank, so he didn't shoot the entire load on fight week.
No, I mean, no, listen, that
He showed out.
episode with Berlanga and Oscar, that's a moment we can just replay for history. Like, no, that was a press conference performance to be up there, maybe in the top 100 press conference performances. So he had his moment. Fat Joe pulled up. Like Puerto Rico was on the feet. They were rocking in that arena, bro. There was like decimals. I want to hear somebody get the decimals in because we were, by the way, in hallowed ground. I'm a tennis lover. It's my
Right,
second,
right, right. You are.
very close second favorite love of sport. And we were in Louis Armstrong Stadium on the tennis grounds for the U.S. Open. Never had a boxing match there before. I got to tip my hat to Ring Magazine. The production was incredible. The venue was an incredible choice, and the energy in that spot and the crowd, the Puerto Ricans came, and Amanda Serrano didn't get it done the night before, so they really were putting all their heart and soul into Berlanga this time. So it's a tough couple of days for Puerto Rico. Oh!
Hey, Xander Zayas to save the day in 2 weeks. Okay.
Okay, third
Listen,
third time lucky.
yeah, man. Show up. Hey, Boricua. Okay. Show up 2 weeks at the Garden for Xander Zayas. All right. He might, get you
You
some
know what
get.
I like about Puerto Ricans also is even though their woman lost, their man lost, in both cases they showed respect and cheered for the winner at the end. They weren't sour grapes, they weren't throwing cups of water, they weren't talking shit to the fighters when they were leaving the arena. They showed class. That's real important, man. Like you got to tip your hat to that because it's not always the case. So Puerto Rico, New York, they stood up, they showed up, they bought tickets, they cheered for their fighters, and then when their fighters didn't get it done, they show respect to the opponent. I love that.
Yeah, well, Puerto Rican fans, like Mexican fans, they not only love boxing, they know boxing. And I remember Mike Tyson talking about if you suck and you fight in Puerto Rico, they'll start fighting and show you how it's done in the crowd, So yeah, about Berlanga. So I was saying in the lead up that you really are, and Shakur was too, especially with the Ray Robinson stuff, but Berlanga even more so. He takes it, he takes it to that ultimate Brooklyn ignorant edge, and I say that as someone from Brooklyn who gets ignorant sometimes. But he get what I want to ask you is when you talk all that shit and you don't back it up, people are gonna kill you on social media. That it is what it is, right? But I still don't. I don't know. In this kicking people when they're down thing, I get it. We got to have a sense of humor. People are gonna make some funny memes about him getting knocked out. What do you think fighters deserve when they're in Berlanga's? Because I feel like all right, you got to be realistic and let people get their rocks off. But I also don't take any joy in kicking a man when he's down either. So, what do you think is fair for someone like Berlanga to go through in the aftermath of this kind of loss?
It's interesting you asked that because I was talking to Ak and Barak and Antonio Tarver immediately after the fight at the presser, and I was like, man, they are gonna rake this guy over the fucking coals. And they're like, no, man, he went out on his shield, respect it, and all this shit. And I was like, nah, nah, he's about to get it. And listen, you gotta take it if you dish it out. I don't like when a guy approaches a fight who's fairly just business about it, well spoken manner, does go out on his shield, gets bested on the night, and then they just try to humiliate him with all these silly memes and the stanky leg, and that's really kicking a guy when he's down. But it's how you approach. It's what the brand you bring to it. It's the kind of energy that you walk into the ring with and do with the press conference build up. So if that's the energy you're putting out, then you're daring people to fuck with you. You're saying I'm not fuck wittable. Like I can handle the smoke and I'm bringing the smoke. You're throwing fucking high heels and pantyhose at Oscar De La Hoya. You're making it rain. You're the king of New York. You're doing all this shit. So you're raising the stakes. And when you get up there, people are gonna enjoy knocking you down if you fall. So yeah, he's got to take it, and he's got to take it in stride. He should answer that shit. Don't tuck your tail. Don't fucking hide your head. Be like, all right, I went out there on
No,
my
I
shit,
lost. I
got
lost. It
bested, I beat
happens. I
back.
took a L.
Yeah, fuck the haters. It's
Yeah,
not really
fuck
a
the haters.
loss.
I
I'm
still
trying to,
got money. That's the
you can say that with
motherfucker still
Canelo.
broke,
You
but
can
not
say that with
Oscar.
Canelo. I don't know if it's going to work two times in a row with Hamzah Sheeraz being the second one. So now you got to kind of go back to the drawing board and be like, all right, what is fucking fixable here? What do I need to make adjustments to compete at this level? Because if you can't beat Canelo and you can't beat Shiraz at this stage of his career, you may not be in the upper echelons of the 168-pound division. You might, be a journeyman, not even a gatekeeper. I mean, you got to now figure out how to compete at this level and what you need to fix because it's not like we went 12 back and forth, knocked down on each side, razor thin margin and all, Hamza edged it. No, he outsmarted you, he outclassed you, he outpunched you, he outboxed you, and he had to make an adjustment to do it. You came with the heat and he was able to put out the fire and then put you out on your feet. So that means you were absolutely beaten at every turn. And if you're going to be an elite fighter at any level or any weight class, I should say, that shit can't be happening to you. You can lose, but you can't lose that way and expect to compete in the upper echelon. So Berlanga needs to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. And in the meantime, he's gonna have to take these memes and trolls on the chin a little bit better than he took those Hamza Shiraz uppercuts and right hands.
Yo, Radio Raheem, you a fucking hater. I'm not a journeyman, I'm a superstar. But
Yeah,
but
prove it. I fuck with Berlanga. I like him. It's not a diss. It's just reality. If you
Right.
want to keep getting these paydays, you want to keep talking that shit, you want to walk these streets like the king. I mean, man, you gotta do something that keeps the village people believing in you. And these last two fights ain't getting it done, bro. You can go figure out what the problem is. I can't tell you. I don't know, but maybe you can fix it and come back and better. People want to see Berlanga fight again. He's entertaining. Like I said, he went out on his shield. He got beaten soundly, but he didn't lay down. He got put down. If Berlanga is on another show, I'm watching it. We're talking about it. I think people are still buying tickets to see it. So he's not out the game. He just needs to come back better.
A lot of people are obviously very skeptical of him as any high level opponent. And, you know, we're just being realistic. His last fight was on an undercard in Orlando. That was Eddie Hearn punishing him, right? Last fight on an undercard in Orlando. So we'll see where he goes from here, you know. But I do want to give him credit because Floyd used to talk about a lot of fighters don't talk trash. They don't want to be put on the spot and held accountable for all the confident, shit talk they said. And Floyd used to say, give me a guy like that. Give me a guy who's willing to take that chance. Ali put it differently. You know, he used to say, I'm putting myself on the spot by now I got to back it up. He didn't back it up. So the repercussions are what they are. But I give him credit for that. He raised the stakes of his fight because it was a non-title fight and he made you care that much more about it heading into it. But it is what it is. Hey, Brooklyn, we got to hold this L. So, but for Shiraz, quickly too. We're wondering how he could compete now against the top five at 68. Well, if these kinds of fights, when you fight the past opponents of the top dogs, they're measuring stick fights. He measured up pretty good to Canelo. He in terms of the common opponent, Berlanga. Why didn't I think a lot of people are asking themselves, how did Berlanga hold up for 12 rounds against Canelo if Shiraz dispatched of him in five? And that bodes that doesn't mean Shiraz beats these guys at 68 like Mabili and Pacheco and but quickly, him and Pacheco's a great fight. He's sharper than Pacheco, faster than Pacheco, but I don't know if he beats Pacheco. Anyway, what do you make of that? That Shiraz blew out Berlanga in more impressive fashion than Canelo. And we don't know if Canelo could get past Crawford, but that seems like the fight Turkey wants more than any other fight in any other weight class now is Canelo Shiraz.
It's the way that Canelo and Berlanga fought. I mean, Canelo's short. Canelo's arms are fairly short. He likes to fight inside. The way he moves and finds his angles benefits the way Berlanga tucks up and likes to come over the top with that, right hook. And so, yeah, I mean, I hate to keep saying it, but of course styles make fights. But in this case, it was really just a matter of a element that Berlanga could not overcome, which I think was the distance and the ability to of Berlanga, the ability of Hamzah to have power on the end of his punches. So, you can get long guys, tall guys, and they don't really got a lot of snap, right? They can keep you out with the jab. They can make it frustrating. You got to figure out a way to get in, but when you get in, they're fragile. That's what it looked like we were seeing in the first round
Right.
and then the third round. But then we saw that Shiraz, has a little bit of chin and he's got some heart and he's got power and more power at 68 than he had at 60. So at the end of those shots, Berlanga just couldn't handle it. If he could have taken those shots, this fight would have been fucking seesaw. He might have knocked Hamzah down later in the fight because he was effective when he was able to get inside, but he couldn't take the punishment. And you said in the build up in our pre-fight analysis, do you trust Berlanga to be able to take those shots and get inside? You trust him to try to keep coming. You said exactly that. And the answer was no. The answer is he couldn't.
Actually, Shiraz said, "No, no, don't worry, Sean. He doesn't have to move his head, and I'll let him in. Come in here. Come on, let's go." And Shiraz almost said, "This dude is ducking under, trying to take my head off. All right, me or you then. I'm not gonna, stay back and keep giving you opportunities to tee off. Time to let my heavy shit out now."
Yeah, and the adjustment that Berlanga did not make, which is how you can differentiate a class fighter from a brawler, is that when he was inside, the answer is tie him up, make it rough, lean on him, bring that big man down, make that lower back start to hurt as you tie his hands up and then put all your weight on him and then push him off. And so you get inside, do your work, and don't let him and smother his. And then when he's outside, keep that head moving, make him chase you with the jab, and then get inside and grab him again and beat him up. Like that's the adjustment that Berlanga needed to make that he never even considered. He always thinking is making these haymakers, and that is the
In that
difference
sequence
in
where he got
class.
caught, I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Right. It wasn't registering what he should have been doing. Part of that's on the corner, and I couldn't hear the corner. So maybe they told him, maybe they didn't. But the fact that you couldn't or wouldn't make that adjustment is what differentiates class fighters, world champions, contenders, and journeymen.